Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sadia Zafar from HRAI, and I would like to welcome you to today's session on top 5 lessons learned during COVID that will make your business stronger than ever. Our presenter, Dana Lloyd of Answer Plus, will dive into lessons learned across all facets of business and discuss trends Answer Plus has seen through the interaction with customers and how you can use this information in your own business models. Please be advised, all the lines are muted. You will notice on the control panel of your screen a link to ask questions. You can ask questions at any time during the webinar. The questions will be addressed at the end of the session. Also note this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be sent to you following the session. Now we welcome Dana.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As mentioned, my name is Dana Lloyd. I own a business called Answer Plus. We're a 24/7 inbound call center. We handle calls, emails, chats, texts for a variety of different companies. In fact, we actually work for HRAI and we handle all the contractor locator calls that come in. Our core customer base are those businesses that typically operate 24/7 and need to outsource their call handling needs. We handle a lot of HVAC, plumbing, contractors, disaster restoration, or just a few of the industries that we support. So today what I want to talk about is lessons learned during COVID. I think this pandemic has obviously been stressful and uncertain and incredibly long, but I believe that some of the changes that we've had to implement in our businesses have made our businesses stronger. So today I want to share with you the top 5 business lessons that I've learned that I feel are universal and can truly improve all of our businesses. For some reason, I cannot. Oh, there we go. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So lesson number 1, communicate, communicate, communicate. I know this one is so obvious, but I also think it's the most important. And I also think it's an easy one to forget, especially during a crisis when we are obsessing constantly about things happening and what we need to do. We're assuming that everyone on our team are thinking the same thoughts. And what I've learned during this pandemic that is in the absence of communication from leadership, your team will fill in the gaps and not always with the correct information. And the information that they can be substituting and putting out there can really do damage to your culture, to your team, and to your productivity. Oh, sorry, guys. There we go. All right, this is sort of random, but I think this is kind of an interesting model. A lot of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Quick overview, Maslow's hierarchy is often portrayed in a pyramid format and pyramid shape, with the largest needs, which happen to be the most basic needs, at the very bottom of the pyramid. And these basic human needs at the bottom of the pyramid have to be achieved in order for you to move up the pyramid and have different motivations. So at the base are your physiological needs, which are food, water, shelter, clothing, your health. They're the most essential things that a person needs to survive. And when someone is in this state, their instinct is survival and survival only. So if you are in this level or in this state, it's so difficult to focus on anything else but what is right in front of you. You're preoccupied with meeting your basic needs. You can't focus on your future. You can't focus on making decisions. It's really sort of you're in survival mode and you can really only make basic decisions to get those needs met. And at the outbreak of COVID, a lot of us and a lot of our teams fell into this category. People were worried about getting sick. We were worried that the world was falling apart. We were worried about our jobs. We were worried about how we were going to feed our families. And I mean, it was evident. We were acting irrationally. We were hoarding bottles of water and soap and toilet paper. We were starting to grow food in our backyards. Yet at work, we were expecting our employees to act like normal and ourselves to act like normal, to make decisions and to continue to work productively, effectively, when some of them were really in the survival mode. So in these times, in these early stages of a crisis, as a leader, communicating is so critical. Communicating using instructional type messages is key because it helps people feel safe and it helps them to adjust. It encourages calm. So as an example, at the very beginning of COVID, the government was talking to us about the importance of washing our hands and social distancing. Super, super basic, very simple, consistent messaging. We didn't have to figure it out. We didn't have to think about things. We were just told what to do, and that allowed us to kind of move through that first stage. And I think truly, if the messaging had been more complicated, more complex, not as instructionally based, there would have been more panic. Obviously, your messaging will evolve from being very directive to more robust when the time calls for it. But the point is that employers and leaders often underestimate how much their employees depend on them as trusted sources of information. Just a couple of sort of tips. A lot of people will ask, what kind of methods, how should I communicate with my team? And I think my personal opinion is that anything that you feel the most comfortable with. So videos, memos, newsletters, Zoom calls, whatever you feel is your strength. I started sending out videos, weekly videos at the very beginning of COVID. I thought it would be the quickest way to communicate with my team. They're not that quick, so that was wrong, but it seemed to actually work with our team. Our team was responsive to them, and so I continued recording these very quick videos for the team on a weekly basis. Frequency, I think communicate as much as possible. In this day and age, we're so bombarded with communication that we have to communicate often in order even just to break through all of the noise that's out there. And you probably will feel like you're repeating yourself, but I think it's critical to do so in order to get the messaging across. And keep it simple. Nobody wants the complexity. Nobody wants 3-page memos. Keep it simple, keep it concise. Don't make it too complicated or confusing. And I think another thing that can hang us up is we think to ourselves, oh my gosh, I'm not charismatic enough, or I'm not comfortable doing this. I think that candor is way more important than charisma. Your team want to hear from you. And so I would say don't let perfection or your insecurities stop you from sending the messaging out. And then finally, allow for feedback. Your employees have things to say, allow for feedback, and that will help you tweak your messaging in the future. So number 1 lesson learned, communicate clearly, simply, and frequently. Lesson number 2, sort of in alignment, but employee well-being check-ins. We're seeing a lot of businesses right now showing decreased productivity and increases in absences, in employee absences. Mental health has been such an issue and on the rise for years, but over the last 6 months, we've seen cases increase and it become even more of a challenge. And a lot of people are struggling that may not normally struggle for so many reasons, but a couple of prime reasons are, one, there's so much uncertainty. Even right now we're uncertain. We're sending our kids to school. Do we send them to school? Do we keep them home? How will kids going back to school impact our numbers? Are we going to have another shutdown? There's just so much uncertainty going on right now. And then the second, I think, key piece is the fact that we're alone more than ever. A lot of us live by ourselves. We're not seeing friends. We're not seeing family as much as we used to. We're social beings. So being by ourselves is not normal for us. And so this makes it really, really hard for employees to show up to work and bring their A games. It even goes back to Maslow's hierarchy, that the fact that we're so focused on survival and security that it's difficult to contribute anything else. So I just kind of want to preface this by saying, we're not psychiatrists. We're not solving sort of the mental health crisis that's happening right now. And we can't solve all of our employees' challenges. But we do know that taking care of our employees is important, and we need them to speak to us. We need to understand what's going on so that we know what needs to be done. And we know also that when employees feel heard and they feel valued, they will run through walls for you. They show up for your customers and they show up for their coworkers. So I want to share some ideas that will help your team feel connected and overall just a little bit better. And again, these ideas won't solve everything, but they can help and they can make things a little bit more fun around the office. So here are just a few ideas. I think a lot of us have been doing virtual meetings to ensure that our teams are connected and stay connected. Virtual barbecues, a lot of us have summer barbecues at the office. I've known companies that have dropped off coolers filled with meat so that their employees can have barbecues, and they'll, so the whole company will have sort of a virtual barbecue one specific day. I have a good friend who, and I love this idea, he gave all of his employees $100 when local businesses were allowed to open. And the rule was that his team had to spend the $100 on a local business to sort of fuel the economy. We've done step challenges at our office. For us, it was really important to get our employees outside, some vitamin D, some fresh air. So we had groups set up so that, and they would track their steps so we could, a bit of a competition, and we were getting everybody outside, scavenger hunts, litter pickup. And I mean, substitute that for any sort of charity or do good endeavor. But I think the key here is to get employees to think about other people other than themselves. I think that often helps with, mental health and anxiety. Uber Eats, I know we've been doing a lot of Uber Eats calls. If an employee is doing a great job, we might send them dinner. Competitions will send dinner. So just, it's nice not to have to cook every single night. Buddy check-ins. So if you can't personally get to all of your employees, to set up systems so that people are getting checked up on. Happy hours, beer on Friday. We've been doing weekly health tips. So we'll send out an email to all of our team on Tuesdays or whatever. And it will talk about how to manage stress, how to manage sending your kids to school, how to manage having them at home, things like that. One of the things that I did at the very beginning of COVID that I think sort of really took off, and I didn't know it going into doing this, but I called all of our employees just to check in and make sure that they were okay and that they were, dealing with the situation. And I didn't really realize the ripple effect, but it went far. We have a private company Facebook page, and there were posts about that. So I think, it goes back to feeling heard and feeling valued. And then again, there are some serious things that our teams are going through. We have an EAP program, an employee assistance program, which I just highly recommend for anything that, we can't handle internally. We're not equipped to handle internally. So any, anxiety issues or budgeting or, EAP covers so much. And again, it's not about, having these fun activities. It's really about helping our teams get to a strong base so that they're equipped to manage the stress and to bring their A games to the office. At our office, we actually track how many times supervisors reach out to the team in sort of an informal way, because it's so important to us that we're connecting with our employees and we know what's going on. So check in on your employees, understand their challenges, and really try and help them stay strong. And then sort of the second part of this is, what about you? What about us? I think we've all been running this marathon at a sprinter's pace. And I think it's really important to take time out for ourselves to rejuvenate as well. So turn off your phone at a certain time each day, close your laptop, schedule some time for yourself. I'm seeing a general overall feeling of burnout right now. So make sure to carve out some time to keep yourself rejuvenated. Watch, listen, read things that motivate you. Turn the news off if it's getting to be a bit too much. Incorporate some fun into your daily life. I think that I think we're still facing some uncertainty. I don't think this is going to go away in the next week. So I think it's important that we keep ourselves strong as well so that we can navigate what's thrown at us over the next few months. So lesson number 2 learned: check in on your employees and lead by example by taking care of yourself too. Lesson number 3, decision making. I think that COVID has really taught us that we can make decisions quickly. In our business, if we had decided to go remote 7 months ago, we would have set up committees, we would have had endless meetings, we would have had action items, and it would have honestly taken us a year and a half. But we were able to move our entire team, which is 250 employees, to working from home in 10 days. We can do things a lot quicker than we think we can. We're more agile than we think we are, and we can get more comfortable making decisions with minimal information. And we're getting more and more comfortable making decisions based on our gut because we're having to make them frequently now. And I think we also are getting more confident in making decisions and knowing that we can fix the mistakes if we do make mistakes. So here are a few tips that help us make good decisions quickly. I think one of the most important things, and this is something that I need to work on, but I think one of the most important things is to pause. Take a deep breath, get the oxygen flowing to the brain, calm down your nervous system, because it's really tricky to make a decision when we're agitated and when we're in a knee-jerk reaction mode. When we're panicked, it makes us act right now to sort of avoid any threat. And, our actions may not be the best actions. I think, buying 100 rolls of toilet paper is sort of an example of that. I think another key thing is name the problem. So you've sort of paused, you've reflected. Now I think it's time to name the problem, because oftentimes we're fixing things that don't even need to be fixed. We're not getting down to the core issue of a problem. So I think by naming the problem, we're taking the time out to figure out exactly what needs to be changed. And then let's make it manageable. What's the next one thing I need to do? What's the next 2 things I need to do? I think, for example, if you needed to hire somebody new, you figured out you need more marketing support, so you're going to hire somebody to help with your marketing. What's the next thing you need to do? Is it create a job description? Create the job description. And then what's the next thing? Keep it manageable. When it's not manageable and it feels so overwhelming, it's so easy to kind of let it sit. And then engage your team. Don't feel like you have to make all the decisions. Engage and empower the people that you trust. Get the right people in place, get some insight, and then start to get things done. You don't need a consensus. You don't need everyone on the team, but I think it's important to hear what people have to say so that you're going in with as much information as possible. And then ignore the distractions. I think we're getting things thrown at us, hundreds of times throughout the day. And so it's really important to stay focused on exactly what we're trying to solve. And again, I threw this in because I think this is a really kind of cool way to think about decision making. Jim Collins, who I'm sure you all are familiar with, he wrote the book Good to Great. He has this philosophy, which is shoot bullets before cannonballs. And what he means by this is to test your decisions in small environments before spending a ton of time and energy and money on big ideas. So during COVID, a lot of companies have needed to pivot They've needed to launch new products or service offerings or even full-on business ideas. And so this is so key in times like that. I'll give you an example. When I was out of school, I worked in marketing at Unilever, specifically Good Humor Breyers, and I was on popsicles. And we would, in the summer, go to kids' camps, and we would do mini focus groups with these kids to talk about new flavors that they would like, or do they like this new popsicle we've developed. And it was just a very small environment. It was free to sort of test out our ideas before we went to market with a new product, before we spent a lot of money on launching something. So shoot bullets, do really small tests before you sort of launch those cannonballs. And the lesson learned is we can make good decisions quickly. So trust your gut and act swiftly. Lesson number 4, fix your issues. I think this pandemic has really shown that in times of crisis, our flaws are amplified. So I don't know if all of you face this, but for us, we saw weak players on our team during COVID became weaker. Any process that we had that was a bit clunky became that much more inefficient during COVID, during sort of times of panic and uncertainty when we needed to act quickly. They were more noticeable, they were holding us back more significantly than prior. Any lack of communication was amplified. So bottom line, any gaps or weaknesses that we had before COVID were exaggerated during COVID. And I think the lesson learned here is that it's so critical to fix those gaps sooner rather than later, moving forward. I think, in the past, maybe we thought, oh, it's not that much of an inconvenience, so let's just leave it be. Let's turn a blind eye. Let's hope it rectifies itself. We just don't have time for it. But I think it's critical now that we prioritize our weaknesses or our gaps and start tackling them. I mean, obviously we need to prioritize them, but we need to pinpoint them, fix them, and improve them for the future, because we don't have time in situations of panic and of rapid decision making to have additional things to slow us down. So the lesson learned, be proactive before a crisis occurs, identify your gaps, fix them, learn from them, and create a stronger foundation. The number 5 lesson that we learned was the importance of outsourcing. So when COVID hit, a lot of us realized that it was an all hands on deck situation. For us, we needed to keep resources focused on our staff, and we really needed to rely on our IT partners to help us get everybody remote. And to get not only things done, but to get them done correctly and to get them done quickly. So outsourcing for us allowed us to remain agile during these times and really showed us what good partnerships can do for our business. And I think prior to COVID, we were comfortable outsourcing some of our functions. We have an in-house IT team, but we do outsource a lot of our IT. We've outsourced our marketing, payroll, like we're comfortable outsourcing that sort of thing. But it was a good exercise to sort of reflect back on what else can we do? What else can we outsource? What functions do we currently have that we currently are doing in-house that may be better suited for an outsourced supplier? What else can we do so that we can remain focused on our business that we can outsource to somebody else? So I'll share with you some of the advantages that we've found of outsourcing. One is you're working with experts. You're working with people that it is their job to keep up to date on their core business. So let's use marketing as an example. It's their responsibility to keep up to date on the Google algorithms and social media platforms and it's really time consuming if you're trying to do it in-house. You have your core business. It's nice to work with experts and offload that piece of your business. Oftentimes it's cheaper to outsource due to economies of scale, for example. It allows you to reduce overhead costs. You may not need as big of a physical location. You may not need as much staff, as much technology. I think a big one is to solve capacity issues. I think, let's say you have a big project or a big new client, it can often help ramp you up a lot quicker by using outsourced employees to help you sort of accomplish the project or get the project moving a lot quicker than you would if you had to do it in-house 100%. I think it increases efficiency. And I think, again, the biggest thing is that it allows you to focus on your core business. We recently had a customer come to us. They had a small in-house call center, and they were having turnover issues. And they realized that they weren't in the call center industry. And in effect, they were operating sort of two businesses, their core business, and then the call center, which is a separate business. They realized that they're really good at their core business, and they wanted to spend their time and energy on that. So, lesson learned, you don't have to do everything. Leverage partnerships so you can focus on what you do best, which is typically your core business. And then I added a little bit of a bonus lesson, which is get into the weeds. And this is interesting because I feel like as a CEO or a leader, there's a balancing act, and you need to find the balance between vision and strategy and execution and the day-to-day details. And there's an evolution of business. So when a business is just starting, the CEO or the leaders of the business, they're into everything. Their hands are into everything. And when it grows to 10 employees, the chances are that everyone is seeing the leaders and the CEO on a regular basis. It's just you're very present. And there's an intimacy at this stage. And then we grow and we release some of that control and we build teams to help support the business. But what I found during COVID was that we Answer Plus, I had the opportunity to really dive back into the day-to-day business, and I had to do it. It was out of necessity that I had to do it. Our call volumes were really sporadic. Our typical trends were not what they were normally. Our customer needs were changing. So because of all of this, every single day I started looking at the call volumes, our call traffic patterns. I was looking at our aging report on a daily basis. I started sitting in on trending meetings with our account managers and our ops managers to sort of see what they were seeing. I was listening to calls nonstop just to gauge our quality. I was so in the weeds, and I have not been in the weeds like that for a really long time. But I think the benefit of this was that I really felt like I had a solid understanding of what was happening on the front lines, and I could identify where things needed to adjust. And it allowed my team to remain focused, and then I could kind of help them direct them as to what needed some attention. So it helped our team iron out some wrinkles and refocus their attention. And then again, once things calm down, I've been able to move back into more of a strategic role and less day-to-day, but I have a different perspective on the business. So I wouldn't recommend getting into the weeds 100%, but it's a nice exercise to go through on a periodic basis. So my final lesson I learned was get into the weeds sometimes. It can help you shake up your routine and see things a little bit differently. So in conclusion, as I said, definitely some lessons that we've learned that we will now implement in our business moving forward. I think it will make our team and our business that much stronger. 1, always communicate. 2, prioritize your well-being and your team's. 3, make your decisions. You can make them quicker than we've ever thought we could. 4, address and fix your issues proactively before they become bigger issues. Outsource, and sometimes get into the weeds. Thank you. Now, is there any questions?
Thank you, Dana. That was wonderful. We have a question. How often should one communicate with their team?
Yeah, good question. I don't think that you can communicate often enough. I think that there's so much going on that it's easy to miss things. So I really think that you need to communicate more than you think is necessary. And I will say your team will let you know if you're over communicating. But I really think you will be more uncomfortable with the frequency at which you're communicating than your team will.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how would you know when to outsource and when to keep things in-house?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it kind of goes back to the decision making and sort of fixing the problems. I think when you can identify problems that you're having, it's a good time to think, is there a more creative way to solve this issue? And are there better people that can solve these issues for us? So I think it's reflective, and I think it's really just trying to figure out when somebody else can do a better job, when it's not your core business, and when it's diverting your attention from what you're supposed to be doing, and it's acting as a distraction, I think is sort of a good guideline.
Okay, and last question. When making decisions, should the entire team be involved?
I would say, certain situations maybe, but I think for the bulk, I would say no, especially when you're trying to make decisions quickly. I think it can get so cumbersome and it can really just muddle things up and take so long. So I think it's key to get the right people in the meeting, get their input, and then make your decision.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dana. So this ends our presentation for today. I hope our members found this informative. Please remember to complete the evaluation survey that will appear on your screen at the end of the webinar. And with that, have a great afternoon, everyone. And thanks again, Dana.
Thank you.